Hello, my name is Albert Garcia, and I'm a librarian with the Contra Costa County Library. And I'm very happy to be here once again, partnering with the League of Women Voters on this very important program, Get the Lowdown on 2025 California Prop 50. This program will have a Spanish interpretation, and I'm going to invite our interpreter, Vanessa Cardenas, on now to explain how to turn that function on. Vanessa?
Thank you, Albert. Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. En esta reunión, ustedes tendrán la oportunidad de tener acceso a la interpretación al español. Solo necesita presionar el símbolo terráqueo en su pantalla o puede buscar los 3 puntitos para seleccionar el idioma español. Estamos a sus órdenes. Gracias por unirse a nosotros. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Once again, I'm very happy to be here today for today's program. And before I hand it over to the League, I just want to talk a little bit about the library services. And to do that, I'm going to throw up some slides here. The Contra Costa, I better share it first. Here we go. The Contra Costa County Library is happy to connect you with our resources, services, and materials at all 26 of our branches. Access more than 1 million physical items, including international language collections, and thousands of digital materials 24/7 at ccclib.org. Visit any library to use our public computers, printers, and free Wi-Fi. You can also visit one of our branches with laptops for on-site use or check out a Wi-Fi hotspot for 3 weeks. Contra Costa County Library's adult literacy program trains and supports volunteer tutors to deliver basic literacy instruction to adults throughout the county. Visit our website and sign up for a digital library card today. And I'm now going to hand it over to the League and Sean. Sean, take it away.
Thanks, Albert. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Gilbert, and on behalf of the Contra Costa County Library, the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley, the League of Women Voters West Contra Costa County, and Contra Costa County TV, welcome to our community conversation webinar, Get the Lowdown on Prop 50. Before we begin, I would like to review a few housekeeping items. This is a Zoom webinar, so the audience's microphones are muted and the videos are turned off. If you have any questions for our guest panelists today, please submit them using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. A member of our team will share your questions with the guest panelists during the Q&A portion of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to the YouTube channels of the Contra Costa County Library and the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley. Site addresses for those YouTube channels will be displayed on the screen at the end of the program. Additionally, Contra Costa Television is broadcasting this webinar today and will rebroadcast the program. The dates and times will be posted on your screen at the end of the webinar. Contra Costa Television is available to watch on Comcast Channel 27, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, Astound Channel 32, and online at ContraCostaTV.org. We will also post the contact information for our panelists and the date and subject of our next community conversation at the end of this program. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at the local, state, and national levels. The League of Women Voters of the United States believes that democratic government depends upon informed and active participation at all levels of government. We invite you to join the League of Women Voters and support our work. You can join the League by visiting lwvc.org/join. It is now my honor and pleasure to introduce our presenters, Janet Hoy and Catherine Wilder. Janet Hoy has been involved in the League for over 10 years. She focuses primarily on elections, working on education and advocacy. Janet has also been involved in local issues with the leagues in both North Carolina and California. Janet's professional background was in the health insurance industry, working for insurance companies in a variety of regional roles and working for a large integrated hospital system in San Diego. Catherine Wilder joined the league in 2024 and began serving as an at-large board member in July of this year. She has 30 years of experience as a leadership and organization development consultant, coach, and facilitator, primarily with federal executives and healthcare leaders. She has partnered with 12 hospital and healthcare systems and 22 federal agencies, supporting and challenging leaders to embrace risk, engage and empower people, build agility, and navigate complexity to generate fresh solutions. Catherine has served as president of the board of 2 regional professional associations, as well as board member for the International Leadership Association. She earned her PhD in leadership and change from Antioch University. Janet and Catherine, take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Really appreciate that introduction. And I know I speak on behalf of Catherine here too. We are delighted to be here, and we are delighted that you all are tuning in to listen to information and the pros and cons specifically on Prop 50. So Albert, if you could put the first slide up, that'd be great. Catherine and I are going to be sharing this presentation, so you know, so we'll be handing it a little bit back and forth. And please, as Sean indicated, please do put your questions in the Q&A. We love to get questions, and I suspect that this will only take maybe 25 to 30 minutes or so, so we'll have lots of time for questions. So on this first slide, it says Prop 50 is the only statewide ballot measure in the November 4 special elections. And for those of you who may have sat in on some of our other pros and cons, you might know that it's at some points we've had 10 or 12 or 15 propositions to go through. This time we do just have a single one. We do think it is a very important one. And as Sean indicated, it is a big part of what the league does in getting out and educating voters so they can make informed choices. Next slide. So Sean also covered a lot of this. I would just point out a couple of things about the League of Women Voters. And the first thing is that we are nonpartisan. We've been around for 105 years. And throughout our entire history, we have been strictly nonpartisan. And by nonpartisan, we mean that we never, ever support or oppose any political party or candidate. We do, though, take positions on issues, and we advocate them on issues. And a big part, again, of what we do is education, and that is why we are here today. And we invite you to join us. And I should also mention that men are most welcome. We have a number of male members, and we have members of our board who are men as well. So they are most welcome in our organization. Next slide. So what are pros and cons? Pros and cons is a structured and organized way to go through statewide ballot initiatives. And we do it in an unbiased and nonpartisan way, where we explain the ballot measure, focusing on 3 and then an additional one that's not quite on this slide. So we do indeed talk about the issues. We try to provide some context. And for this particular proposition, because it involves redistricting, and not everybody understands how that process happens, and if they do understand for our state, which is kind of unique in the way we do it, for this proposition, there's a bigger context of understanding to some extent how other states handle redistricting. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Then we're going to talk about the arguments for and the arguments against Prop 50. And in addition, and we think this is really important, we're going to talk about the organizations that support the proposition, the organizations that oppose it, and the organizations that finance it, that have put together, that have got the contributions for either the support or oppose side of this. And we think that can be very revealing about what the proposition is about in terms of who is supporting it. Next slide. So this is the question. You probably have already seen this. Prop 50 is indeed called the Election Rigging Response Act. And there is a single question, and that question is, should our California Constitution be amended to allow temporary changes to congressional district maps in response to Texas's partisan redistricting? That is the whole question. You're going to answer either yes or no on that one. Next slide, please. And now I'll hand it off to Catherine.
Thanks, Janet. And before I begin to touch on some of the background points, did you want to mention anything about sources consulted?
I do. Thank you so much for reminding me.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you all understand where we are getting our information. And there's just a couple of sources, actually. We get the information from the voting guide and the actual proposition language from the Secretary of State's office. We get the financial information from the Legislative Analyst's Office, and that is the part of the California legislature that analyzes financial data and gives information back to the legislature on the fiscal impact. So that's where we get that part of it. We also have taken some information from the League of Women Voters Easy Voter Guide, as well as Cal Matters. And Cal Matters is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, California-based organization that provides information on public issues throughout our state. And at the end, we will have QR codes that you can actually cue in on to get any one of those organizational pamphlets and organizational websites, as well as a QR code if you need to register to vote. But that's where we get all this information. So some of it might appear to be a bit hyperbolic at times, but we take the information from those sources. We're not making it up or doing any kind of massaging to it. We get it strictly from those sources. So thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that.
Yeah, great. So everyone, just have your phones ready to grab screenshots or scan those codes too. So a few background points before we dive deeper into the context related to what is redistricting. And it is the process of choosing geographic boundary lines for our congressional representation. And in most of our states, the legislature determines those district lines, and how we are doing this in California and have been doing this is through an independent commission. And there are other states who use commissions, but they're not always independent. And you can see in the right column of the slide, there are a couple of states that use a sort of a hybrid process. But in California, fully independent, and we do this based on census data every 10 years. So the last time would have been after the 2020 census data collection. And so the temporary nature of this proposition will take us up to the next census in 2030. And on the next slide, with that background, we'll contextualize this just a little bit further in terms of the situation driving the proposition. At the request of President Trump, Texas has redrawn congressional districts to help Republicans maintain control of the U.S. House of Representatives after the 2026 elections. And so to counter this move, Governor Newsom and our state legislature have proposed redistricting in California. And so now it's in the hands of the voters. And the proposal includes replacing California's current congressional district maps with new legislatively drawn maps beginning with those 2026 elections. And Janet will walk us through, actual maps that we'll look at. The proposal also directs the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission in California to resume enacting congressional district maps in 2031. And it also calls for a change in federal law to require redistricting be done by fair, independent, and nonpartisan redistricting commissions nationwide. And then one final context point related to the fiscal effects, and this is important because it might be different from what some of us have been hearing. There is a one-time cost to counties of up to a few $1 million overall statewide. And that would be required to update election materials that would, reflect the new congressional district maps. And so to summarize on the next slide, what does Proposition 50 do? It requires temporary use of the new congressional district maps through 2030. After 2030, the independent commission will resume enacting the drawing of the maps. And it also calls upon Congress to pass the legislation that I just referenced to mandate nationwide independent commissions for redistricting. And then again, just to highlight the fiscal impact, it's a one-time cost up to a maximum of a few $1 million statewide. So that's the summary. Now diving into some of the specifics with the maps, Janet.
Thank you. Next slide. I might also just reference that there are some other states that are considering mid-cycle redistricting. So again, mid-cycle just means that it's before the next census and the normal time that states go through a redistricting process. So there are 7 of them. They are Florida, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, New Hampshire, Nebraska, and South Carolina. So as Catherine referenced, there was a trigger in this proposition that said if Texas goes through with its redistricting, we will put Prop 50 before the voters. And that did indeed happen. It, of course, did not anticipate that there would also be many other states that are taking a look at redistricting. So onto the maps. So the map on the left is the current congressional districts, and the map on the right are the proposed congressional districts. And we have 52 districts in the state of California. And one of the federal rules around redistricting is that districts have to have approximately the same amount of population. And that population is about 780,000 people in each one of the districts. So if you look, just for example, if you look for the districts that are at the northernmost part of the map, so that would be 1, 2, and 3, you see that they are really big districts, really big geographic districts. And the reason for that is there's not a ton of population there. So in order to get the requisite number of citizens and people living there, they had to go over a lot of geography. You will also notice on the map on the right that those districts have changed a good bit. So 1, 2, and 3, kind of at the top and then the right-hand part of your maps. You will also notice that there are clusters of districts that are in the northern kind of Bay Area part of the state, as well as in sort of the LA area, and then again in San Diego, which is where the population centers are. So this just gives you a little bit of a comparison on how districts are changing. Next slide. So which districts will be most affected? Prop 50 is going to redraw lines primarily affecting the 5 districts that are Republican held. So those are 2 I just referenced that are in sort of the northern and eastern part of the state. That's California 1 and California 3. Includes Fresno County, California 22, a district in the Inland Empire, which is San Bernardino and Riverside counties, and then a district in the northernmost part of San Diego County. And you can see the representatives who are listed there. On the right-hand side are some additional districts that are changing, not nearly as much as the ones on the left, but that will indeed have some changes to the lines there. And there are 7 of those. So the intent is to change the districts on the left, the 5 that are on the left, so that they will flip from Republican to Democrat. And the intent for the 7 districts on the right is that they will be solidly Democratic. Some of those districts right now and some of those seats are very close races. So the legislature wanted to make sure that those would be more solidly Democratic. The 3 districts that cover our county, Contra Costa County, are 8, 9, and 10. Although District 10, Representative DeSaulnier, is has the majority of the county from the district perspective. So this is really the intent. Flip the districts on the left from Republican to Democrat, and ensure that the districts listed on the right, those 7 districts, will remain Democratic. And this
Janet,
comes from Cal Matters, I should say. This is from Cal Matters.
and we did get a question earlier that I did not see in the chat that would be easy to address right now. And it's when you say temporary, when we talked about the temporary nature of this proposition, does this mean that the original redistricting that was drawn following the last census, that the Prop 50 lines will revert to the 2020 redistricted lines and go from there after the 2030 census to redraw the new lines? And the answer, I'm confident, and you will correct me, Janet, if I'm off, is that no, it won't revert to 2020. It will be then based on the 2030 census data, but it will revert to the independent commission.
Exactly right. So these temporary districts, as we're calling them, the temporary districts are in place for the 26 election, the 28 election, and the 2030 election. And then 2030 is the year of the census. That'll be happening across the country, of course. And then the independent commission will resume and will redraw district lines 2031 in time for the 2032 election. So you had it exactly right. Okay, thank you. Okay, next slide. So I think it's important for all of us. We all take voting personally, of course. We thought it would be important to take a look at District 10. So a little hard to see on here, but we're going to give you a tool you can use to figure out if it affects you. This is a snapshot of District 10, and the solid lines are the current district lines, and the dotted orange lines are the proposed district lines. So they would change if there is a successful yes vote on Prop 50. And you can see by the information immediately above the right-hand side of this map that the Democratic portion of that district will have a 1% gain, and the Republican portion will have a 1% loss. So that is, again, to make sure that there is Democratic control of these districts, and that is the intent of this proposition. We will tell you at the end, we will give you a QR code that you can actually check for your own address to see if there's any changes in where you live, if there's any changes in districting based on where your street address is. That's a really good tool to have. I used it immediately and there was no change for me, and I'm in District 10. But if you're in the Antioch area in particular, you might see a change. So you would want to know about that. Okay, next slide.
All right.
And to you, Catherine.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll walk through what supporters and opponents say, and reminding you that we're simply reporting this. We're not claiming any of it as true or right. And the source is from our league's Easy Voter Guide. So supporters say that this is an emergency for our democracy, that this is not politics as usual. Donald Trump and Texas Republicans are making an unprecedented power grab to steal congressional seats and rig the election. Prop 50 is temporary and proportional to counter Trump's election rigging scheme in other states, and it expires in 2030. And gives voters the ability to approve the district lines in an election. It creates fair maps that reflect California's diverse communities and keeps California a leader in fair elections by preserving our independent redistricting system. The next slide covers what opponents say. And they say that Power 50, or that Proposition 50 is a power grab by politicians that undoes fair election reforms and returns California to districts that benefit politicians over voters. That Prop 50 replaces an open public process with secretive political backroom deals and hurts fair representation by dividing neighborhoods and weakening minority voices in elections. That it lets politicians control district lines for years and could open the door to permanent, not temporary control. And they also say that it costs taxpayers $200 million. And that is not grounded in evidence. It differs from what the LAO estimates of a maximum of $2 million statewide. And the next slide gives us a picture of who is contributing to the campaign in support as well as in opposition. And so this information is sourced from CalMatters. And so you can see that there is $55 million in support of the Proposition 50 campaign. And you can see the primary donors there, the Fund for Policy Reform, that's George Soros and his group. And you can see the rest. I don't know that I need to read them to you, but you can see that where they come from: the House Majority PAC, the California Teachers Association, Nurses Association, etc. And then there is $9.9 thousand from small donors. And that comes from 873 contributors. And then funding the opposition to Prop 50, there is $35 million. 30 million of that 35 million comes from Charles Munger Jr., and 5 million comes from Kong leadership funds. And then you can see the rest, the individuals named in the other larger donors. And then there is $80 from small dollar donors. 80, not 800 or 8,000, just to be crystal clear. And then the next slide outlines. Oh, it's not there. Okay. But this gives you a sense of the funding in terms of who supports. And then there is more information in your state voter information guide that outlines who supports and opposes the Proposition 50 as well. And so I'll mention that as a future reference that you might want to consult. And so with that, Janet, I'll let you wrap things up.
Thank you. Next slide. So we mentioned that the choice is yours. And I guess I see a question in the chat that came in, and I'll read it and then I'll respond to it because I think it's really apropos of this particular slide. Here's the question. I understand that we are doing this, but can't help but feel a bit hypocritical, and that we are doing exactly what Texas did for the same reason. We are as slimy as Texas, but just temporarily respond to this as the feeling that is not uncommon. And I would agree. I think people absolutely feel that way. And I think it is very clear in this proposition that we get to decide, big difference. Voters here get to decide whether it's okay with us to have the legislature temporarily or redraw lines for temporary use until the next census in 2031 in order to respond to what's happening in Texas and perhaps other states. In 33 states across our country, legislators make these decisions after every census, or in the case of Texas and perhaps some other states, now, mid-decade, without any thought of going to the voters. In our state, we're voting on this. And I think that is a significant and important difference, This has to come to the voters because of the way our system is set up in this state. That is not true in most other states. So I think the fact that the choice is ours as voters, if we choose to vote on this proposition, we are making the decision, not the legislature. I think that's super important. So we mentioned that we would give you some QR codes. This from left to right is the California Secretary of State Voter Information Guide. You can click on that and get the electronic version. We also have our own League of Women Voters California Easy Voter Guide. We mentioned Cal Matters. That's where you can go and put your home address in and figure out if your district is changing or not. And then if you, by some chance, have not registered to vote yet, you certainly can do that on this link. And in fact, you can register to vote on the day of the election, Tuesday, November 4. Your vote will be provisional until the Secretary of State and the Department of Elections can verify your identity. But you can indeed register to vote and vote the same day, November 4, if you show up at a polling place. So I think that's it for the formal part of our presentation. We're happy to address a few more questions.
Two other related questions in the chat related to the temporary nature. What in terms of concerns that, well, what's the guarantee that it will be temporary? What's the and let me find the actual question. When the temporary period ends in 2030, could California act at that time to once again implement legislative control of redistricting? What specific process does Prop 50 guarantee that the redistricting mandate really returns to the independent commission? And I mean, again, I would say that the guarantee is in the language of the proposition, the law itself. And Janet, I don't know if you want to elaborate any further.
No, I think that's accurate. So it will default to the commission by the language of the proposition. And if indeed the legislature decides, oh, everyone else is still doing this, we want to change our districts, we want to keep the current districts or whatever, then it would require another proposition that would come before the voters, and we would get the opportunity to vote again. I can't stress enough that the redistricting process across the country amongst our states is different state to state. And we alone have a kind of a singular process here with an independent commission that works really hard to do things in transparent ways and does a lot of outreach to communities about getting their input before those lines are drawn. And that effort is done to make sure that, as they're called, communities of interest are able to sort of stay together as within a single district. And that's been an important part of the work that the commission has done. That is not true almost everywhere else. So again, just to go back to the reason that how this is really different is that you and I are going to be deciding. I've already voted. You probably can't see my sticker, but I have already voted. And I suspect all of you on this call have gotten your ballots already. You're going to decide, not our legislators. They're saying, here's a choice for you. You tell us what you want us to do. That is a very significant difference.
It doesn't look like we have any more questions right now.
There's one more question that just came in.
More.
One more. We'll get it to you
Thanks,
right
Susan.
now. Hold on.
Okay, thank you,
All right.
Susan. I'll also just add a little plug for the League. The League takes its education role really seriously. And this webinar, as well as other meetings that are happening up and down the state, we are just one league in Contra Costa County, but we have sister leagues up and down the state who are doing webinars and who are doing outreach so that people understand this issue. We think it is an incredibly important one. We think there are thoughtful people who are on either side of this issue. We invite you to do any exploration you need to do to come to a decision yourself, but please do vote. Your vote really matters, and the future of what happens is in your hands, really, certainly in our state and its impact on other states nationwide.
All right. So the question that just arrived, I'm looking at the map I live in Antioch, cannot tell if I am in the proposed district or not. It looks like it is between the two. So, where would one go to find out where you plug in your address?
Cal Matters, the Cal Matters district lookup, it's still on the slide. Please go there. It's incredibly easy to use. We would recommend that you do that. Important to do.
Right.
So I think I see another question here.
Yep.
In the call for change to federal law to set up redistricting commissions, can a state call on the federal government to do this? They actually can't. This was a request. I can actually read it to you. I found it super interesting. So what the proposition says is that it, and I'm quoting, asks the U.S. Congress to change federal law and propose an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to require redistricting be done by a fair, independent, and nonpartisan redistricting commission nationwide. It does not require any particular action by Congress. I don't think our state has the authority to tell Congress what to do. What they are doing instead is saying, we think it is an uneven playing field across the country. We think there should be standardization to how redistricting is done, and we think it should be done the way we have traditionally done it, by an independent commission that acts in transparent ways and engages the populations across their state who will be impacted by this. That's very important. Unfortunately, I kind of think that's not going to make a big difference to our current Congress, but I think it is important that that was stated in this proposition because it tells us where the legislature and the governor stands on redistricting writ large.
Right. So for the record, they're making the ask. And I see in the comments too that Marc Desaulniers has also has legislation to require independent commissions for all states.
And someone mentioned something about the presidential election debates, which we haven't done for years and years and years, but I remember the league doing it. I think I was pretty young then, but and I think that whole process has become so politicized. I'm not sure any organization any longer can really manage the debates at the presidential level, and even at some of the Senate levels, it's gotten a bit wrought is probably, or overwrought is probably a good way to put it, with all kinds of rules coming from either side, et cetera. But thank you. We wish we could be more involved in that as well. We do, though, do a lot of candidate forums locally, as you know, for local positions and maybe some congressional positions too.
Janet, do you know which states have an independent commission like California?
I don't think any has one that is exactly like California. I don't, let me see, hang on. I do not. Sorry. And some have what is called an independent commission, but then the legislature needs to approve the lines. So it's sort of tricky. Hence the call by, I guess, Marc Desaulniers and our legislature and governor to make things standardized. That is something that really should have been in our U.S. Constitution.
There's a question. Oh,
I'm sorry, Catherine. I was just going to add that California's Independent Redistricting Commission is considered a gold standard in the country right now.
But I might also add that the Redistricting Commission has 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 who do not belong to either of those parties. So although it is, it's bipartisan, I guess we should say. It's not nonpartisan, it's bipartisan. So the people who are identify themselves as Democrats and Republicans are representative, and people who are identified as not having a party preference are also part of it.
2 more questions. One, does Charlie Munger live in California? He lives in Palo Alto, according to my research. And then, won't all Republicans vote against and all Democrats vote for? Not necessarily. I mean, it isn't that clear cut. This is one of those questions I wish we could have like an exchange, engage with the group on. And I don't know, Janet, do you want to say any more about that?
I suspect that it may be pretty partisan, but I think people on both sides understand that this is a unprecedented situation in our country, and that perhaps because of that context, people's feelings may have changed. And I think again, good people on both sides of this who may disagree have thoughtful responses to it. And it's a little more complex than just I'm a Republican, so I'm against this, and I'm a Democrat and I'm for it. There probably is some of that for sure. But again, we live in, it's so overstated, but we live in unprecedented times. And again, this was triggered by our president asking another state to do this. So I think the situation is quite unique.
And there's also, do we really think that passing this bill will adequately offset what other states are doing? And it's, I mean, it's the most or best we can do. I mean, that's the intention of it, to counter that.
Since I don't think we have any other questions, I would invite people to investigate or look into the League of Women Voters US initiative that's called Unite and Rise. It is an effort to mobilize 8.5 million Americans to oppose and protest against some of the more, what the League considers the sort of more egregious anti-democratic things that are happening from the current administration. And we're doing it on our own local level here in Contra Costa County. And that involves the League being really out front at protests. The next big one is coming up on October 18, and we're going to have our banner, and we're hoping to add to the group size. We're not inventing these rallies. We're doing it in conjunction with Indivisible across the country, as well as doing some periodic educational outreach. We had a panel discussion about 3 or 4 weeks ago that involved city mayors, a county supervisor, a county head of education, county superintendent, the head of education, to talk about the impact locally of the DOGE and BBB cuts. And it was very well attended, and I think we all learned a lot. And what many of us walked away with is the sense that we are a community and that we will support each other, and that it's very important for us to understand perhaps what some of our neighbors or ourselves and our own families are going to be going through because of these rather devastating cuts, particularly in healthcare and the food programs that will be hitting many people in our county. So we hope to offer similar type educational outreach programs over the next year or so.
And Janet, I would recommend that you share where people could view the recording of that panel discussion.
Refresh my memory, Sean. I know it's on YouTube.
It's on, I believe it's on the League of Women Voters YouTube page, as well as the City of Walnut Creek.
Thank you.
Great.
It's super interesting. We had the mayor pro tem of Walnut Creek. We had the mayor of Concord. We had county supervisor Scales Preston. We had Lynn Mackey she's the superintendent of the education. And I'm probably missing somebody. We had 5 people, and I have to tell you, it made me proud of our elected representatives. They were knowledgeable, they were thoughtful, they were engaged, and they cared. And I just don't know what else you can ask from public servants. It was really kind of inspirational to me. So I invite you to look at that and to join us. I think we have some exciting and important things going on, and we'd love to have you join us.
And we did get a couple of reminders in the chat, and I believe it's connected to the earlier question about, well, won't all Republicans vote against and Democrats for? And they include, don't forget, 25% of California voters are independent. And also, our votes are secret. Therefore, those who profess to be on one side may vote otherwise.
So seeing no further questions, I would just thank everybody for attending. It's been really fun to be a part of this. It's always a little strange that we can't see your faces, etc. That always makes it a little weird, but We certainly are very glad that you were part of this. The election is November 4. Please do vote. That's the most important thing you can do. And if you have other things that you would like to get in touch with us about, you are certainly welcome to. You can do that through our website. So thank you all very much. Happy voting. And I'm not in Contra Costa County at the moment, but I understand it's a lovely day. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Madeline, are you finishing up?
Thank you so much, Janet and Catherine. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the League of West Contra Costa County and Contra Costa County Library, and CCTV, I want to extend a genuine thank you to all of our guests today. Janet, thank you so much for your presentation and fielding wonderful questions. The same for Catherine. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to Vanessa Cardenas for providing the Spanish interpretation of today's webinar. This service is jointly funded by the Contra Costa Library and the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley. This community conversation, Get the Lowdown on California Proposition 50, is being rebroadcast on CCTV on the following dates and times. Today is the live program and was streamed live. You have a moment to check out the following dates if you want to record those. This community conversation is also available on YouTube channels of the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley and the Contra Costa County Library. Please save the date for our next community conversation, Born Equal, a conversation with Akil Amar, scheduled for Monday, October 13th on the campus of St. Mary's College at 6:30 p.m. The League is co-hosting with St. Mary's College the renowned constitutional scholar Akil Reed Amar in person at St. Mary's College as well as via Zoom. Professor Amar will be discussing his newly released book, Born Equal, Remaking America's Constitution, 1840 to 1920. This event will take place on the campus of St. Mary's College, 1928, St. Mary's Road, Moraga, at the Soda Center. It will also be available online. Please visit the Contra Costa County Library events page to register to attend online. No registration is necessary to attend in person. Community Conversations programs are a partnership between the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley, the League of Women and the League of Women Voters West Contra Costa County, the Contra Costa County Library, and CCTV. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. The League never endorses or opposes candidates or political parties. We influence public policy through education and advocacy. We invite community members to join the League and support the work we do. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and we'll see you soon. Take care.